Chapter 86, Dwarven Secrets. I'd been expecting to wait for a few days until the enemy arrived, but when the sound of dwarven horns blasted through the air, only a couple of hours had passed. They seemed to be rather early. I had expected them to be a little tardier too, but it wouldn't make much of a difference now. We can only face them to the best of our abilities. Once again, we scaled the high wall and went to meet the Dwarven King. Various generals from last time were nowhere to be seen. Probably off to the other walls to defend them personally. Only the one addressed as Windolf had returned. I took that as a sign that the secret stash had arrived too. Indeed, as I looked around on the wall, a multitude of machines was placed there along with mountains of stone boxes. Ah, the chosen ones. Perfect timing. Our scouts had just seen the hordes approaching. As the Dwarven King said that, he gestured towards a section of the wall. At first, I was a little confused as to why the scouts would be on the wall, but one glance cleared up everything. Is that a telescope? You know of it? Well, yes, but never for the use in combat. The one I know is used to watch the sky and see stars. That is indeed the purpose it was invented for. However, over the years, we noticed that it could be used to observe great distances as long as it is mounted in a high place. Admittedly, making it adjust and turn was very challenging. That gear below it can rotate into every direction. Quite impressive, isn't it? It sure is. The horn sounded again and Durin switched from his pleased bragging face to a serious face in an instant. Trebuchets and catapults take aim and fire at will. Cannons and mortars take aim and hold. Immediately a horrible cracking rang through the air as hundreds of gears shifted simultaneously. The air was filled with burning projectiles ejected by the dwarven war machines. As the first undead approached, they walked straight into the burning projectiles that were raining down from the sky. Large gashes appeared in the undead horde as thousands of undead burned, but looking at the whole horde, the damage was little more than a drop in the ocean. As the undead drew closer to the wall, the cannons engaged as well. The giant iron barrels were aimed down as bright red inscriptions lit up on them. With a roar, the barrels spewed a column of fire as they ejected a burning ball that exploded as it hit the ground. The horde's progress was halted temporarily, but it soon resumed its advance. The first undead were now only 100 meters away from the wall. Drop the golems. Golems? The dwarves upon the wall started kicking down the piled-up stone boxes. While falling, the boxes unfolded and took a rough human shape. They landed before the undead and immediately engaged. They were terribly weak individually, but with their great number, their strong defense, and the dwarven fire support, they managed to stop the horde from advancing. The only ones getting through were undead at the Marquis and Duke level. They simply flee above the golems and avoided the projectile rain. I was about to get worried, but then a Duke-level undead was struck by multiple small things that ripped him apart. A rifle? Flarelocks are truly a scary weapon. Night Owl seemed to know about this weapon too. I couldn't help but compare it with the flint and mage locks of my previous world. As the undead came into range, the various dwarves, with their flare locks, dispatched them one by one. The situation looked to be fully under the control of the dwarves. However, the main danger had yet to arrive. If the King Magi were left unchecked, they could tear this wall down within seconds. Right on cue, a plethora of strong presence appeared on the horizon and closed in quickly. Both Night Owl and I started shifting our weight, ready to shoot up and engage them. Don't go yet. Let us have a shot at them first. Chapter 87, Don't Bring a Sword to a Gunfight. Durin's words came somewhat unexpected. Fighting a King Magus, without being one yourself, was very difficult. Usually, a lot of coincidences were needed for that to happen, and that was fighting just one. Durin was talking about taking on a whole group of them. Now the king magi came into view. A full 100 of them. And as far as I could tell, 60 were real king-level magi or fighters. Please tell me most of them are fakes. Night Owl, I hate to disappoint you, but more than half of them are real. King Durin, do not underestimate them. The real ones are all experienced veterans that can fight incredibly well and have no fear of kamikaze attacks. Not to worry. I couldn't hope to defeat them all, but if we can weaken them while you preserve your strength, that would be a favorable outcome. Where do you take this confidence from? It may seem like we are lagging behind other races in overall power, but I assure you, we have progressed in our own way. While we were talking, the king-level undead had reached the vicinity of the wall. A true king magus stepped up and was about to introduce himself as customary for them, but the roar of thunder interrupted him. A blue bolt of lightning tore through the air and hit him square in the chest. When the lightning had passed, the magus was still moving, but a sizable chunk of his torso was missing. Losing control of his flying, the wounded undead fell straight into the burning flames below and burned up. Admittedly, I was flustered and looked around rapidly to find the source of that attack. As everyone had frozen up from shock, another 2 bolts of lightning tore through the air with resounding thunder booming along. One bolt ripped through a bunch of fakes and the other approached a warrior-looking guy who punched the lightning head-on and remained mostly unhurt. By now, I had found the source of these attacks. Behind the wall, hidden in the mountains, stood 3 spider-like machines that had a spear mounted on their backs. Around the spears, a residue blue lightning was still visible as they were probably recharging. What are these things powered by? Their power output is insane. Right. They are each powered by an elemental origin. These 3 all have a lightning origin as their core and can fire very potent strikes. While the strikes were truly powerful, to me, a glaring weakness remained. They were still recharging, and by now, the undead magi had spotted them too. I think it's time to join the fight. We can still further weaken them. You could, but it would be far more effective if we held them back while you fire. Not waiting for Durin trying to talk me out of it, I flew up to block the undead. As I had feared, the real king-level undead weren't stupid like the rest. One came forward to engage me, while the rest split up and went around me heading for the dwarven machines. The fakes originally wanted to fight me too, but received a command from a real one and went around me too. Night Owl was similarly engaged by only one while the rest avoided him and his domain. I'd have to hurry up and go after them. The one facing me was the king fighter who had blocked the lightning. His muscle-packed upper body was bared and his long hair swayed in the wind. I am Mars, divine strength of Sparta. I have risen from my blood-soaked grave to dash. Yes, Eldar, life, now go die. I rushed at Mars and threw a punch straight at his chest. Accepting the challenge, Mars reciprocated with a punch of his own. His punch arrived before mine but showed no effect when it connected. Mine, on the other hand, connected to his chest and made him cough up blood. As my fist was still touching his chest, I grew branches out my fist, directly piercing through him. Internal domain? Damn you. Quickly absorbing his innate understanding into my body and sealing it, I chased after the others. This time, 4 king magi turned to delay me. Funny, wasn't it? First I had been the one delaying them, now they were delaying me. Meanwhile, the first real king magus had reached the airspace directly above one of the mechanic spiders. Secondary cannons engage. At Durin's command, 4 smaller but longer barrels emerged from the spider's main body and unleashed a barrage of lightning-charged bullets at the incoming magus. Their lethality wasn't comparable to the lightning strike, but still managed to push back the flustered undead. Now, I would have to take care of those 4 idiots. Unfortunately, due to Mars, they now knew of my internal domain that made me invulnerable to their attacks. Chapter 88, Durance Ace. Fighting 4 opponents would hold no danger for me, but take a long time. So I decided to take a little risk. As the 4 floated a few meters away from me, they wanted to once again introduce themselves. This was my chance to end this quickly. Life domain expand. Within my domain, there is only life, all death shall be eradicated. I let my life domain expand out of my body. Taking advantage of the antagonistic relationship between life and death, I targeted the essence of these undead and circumvented their innate understandings. Of course, this held some risk. I felt the javelin before I saw it. A wooden javelin wrapped in life magic phased right through the boundary of my domain, continued on, and buried itself in my shoulder. I really shouldn't have formed pain neurons when I condensed this body. For more undead down in return for a javelin through the shoulder. Not the best trade-off, but an acceptable one. Retracting my life domain, I used some lightning to destroy javelin and grew over the hole in my chest to temporarily fix the damages. Night Owl had also finished off his first opponent and had now confined all the fakes in his domain and was slowly finishing them off. The mechanic spiders, however, were not doing well. Despite their suppressive fire and more lightning strikes, they were still besieged by 40 king magi. The first spider was already half broken with its lightning spear broken in 2. Just then, a lightning strike shot down the king mega that had thrown that javelin. Unexpectedly, the lightning strike had come from the wall. There, Durin still sat on his throne. Just that this throne was now mounted on another mechanic spider. This spider had 4 additional limbs that were extended into the air. 2 at the front, reminding of the claws of a scorpion, and 2 at the back reminding of a scorpion's stinger. One of the 2 limbs in the back was a lightning spear like the other spiders had. The other back limb ended in an actual stinger that was surrounded by dark tendrils. Durin was laughing like a maniac as he sat on his throne with a special-looking flare lock in his grasp. How dare you break one of my mechanic spiders? Do you know how much resources went into building them? You will feel my wrath. Now taste the power of my ace. Realizing the danger of the new mechanic spider, the 20 king magi split off from the group assaulting the other spiders and headed over for Durin. Actually, let me take back my statement from before. While they aren't brainless like the fakes, they are stupid to only leave 20 people behind to fight 3 mechanic spiders, me and Night Owl, who had just finished off all fakes. Without another magus, with an innate understanding of life, my domain was the bane of these undead. Together with Night Owl's domain and the spider's fire support, we slowly whittled down the 20 remaining magi. Meanwhile, King Durin was also facing 20 king magi. Atop his mechanical throne, he aimed the flare lock at them and shot a blinding line of light that directly pierced through the head of one of the undead. 19 left as the lightning spear roared again and reduced that number down to 18. As they drew closer, one of the spider's extended front limbs flared up and unleashed swaths of flame. The 4 undead up front caught fire, and based on their reaction, this was no ordinary flame. The 14 remaining ones moved back as the second front limb lit up and sent out a powerful gust of wind. Carried by the wind, the flames carried further and reached the retreating undead. 2 more down, 12 left. This time the undead carefully avoided the space in front of the fire limb and advanced once again. Then the sword limb pierced forward like a stinger and cut another magus straight in 2 while the lightning spear simultaneously eliminated another. 10 to go, and those 10 started to realize that they weren't prepared to fight this murderous machine. More so, when the whole thing started to move. Yes, you read correctly, the spider could move around like a monster spider, jumping down the wall and maintaining a constant shift of positioning. To my great surprise, Durin finished his battle before us and without sustaining any damage. Although I guess the element of surprise played a huge role. Chapter 89, Aftermath, Harvest Time. So, what do you think of my mecha demon spider? Very interesting. A design that can fight and defeat multiple king magi is definitely a great creation. But do tell, how did you manage to make it capable of doing real harm to king magi? Ordinary elemental attacks can't do that kind of damage. So you noticed. Let me tell you, getting the elemental origins to create this was so exhausting. I even had to ask Sindri to make that hammer for Thor. But look at the result. Hiring Gandalf was definitely a worthy investment. Oh, I definitely have to meet him at some point. Maybe after visiting Sindri. So you are just going to leave? Well, I'll first collect the King Magi's remains, but after that, yes. Is there a reason to stay here? Don't you want to find out where all this came from? It comes from a city guarded by an undead divine beast that wants nothing more than to kill someone. Do you still want to go? How strong can a divine beast be? Let's assemble a giant army and storm that city. Don't be a fool, King Durin. In our ancient text, divine beasts are described to have a special domain and unlimited magic. They are unrivaled within this world. Are they truly that bad? Not quite, but it isn't far off. Their domain isn't special, but a fused domain with two innate understandings within. This makes them unbeatable unless you have a stronger domain. As for unlimited magic, that's incorrect. They just have the incredibly pure magic which someone of our level can't hope to exhaust. That didn't sound much better. And that is why I will stay the hell away from that place. Indeed, a good suggestion. Should you ever find yourself near my palace in Nidavellir, feel free to visit. And with that, my audience with the king came to an end. Now it was time to head to Nidavellir. But wait, wasn't I forgetting something? I could swear there was someone else I had wanted to tell about the divine beast. Nah, it couldn't have been that important if I forgot about it. While I had been lost in thought, Night Owl had descended next to me without making a sound. I had made it a habit to keep my magic perception up at all times. Just thinking of having a divine beast sneak up on me unnoticed gave me the creeps. Are you heading straight to Nidavellir? I'd be happy to accommodate you in Svartalfheim. It's only a slight detour on the way down to Nidavellir. Sure, I accept your invitation. Night Owl whistled, and only minutes later a giant bird figure approached our current position. As it came closer, I could make out more details. It was an enormous owl with feathers darker than the night. The only parts of it that weren't black were its crimson-colored eyes. So that is where your name comes from. Night Owl seems to hit the mark quite well. It's an ancient tenebrous owl. The last of its kind. Can't beasts of that level produce eggs without a mate? Resources to nurture them shouldn't be that much of an issue for your entire race. The ancient tenebrous owl is special. Once they fully mature, they can immediately match a king magus, but the criteria for a tenebrous owl to grow into an ancient tenebrous owl is that it spends 1,000 years in true darkness. True darkness? You helped the dwarves in return for the dark origin, didn't you? It's the only way to create true darkness for a long enough time. Neither I nor 1010 can keep an area in darkness for that long. 1010? The giant owl turned its head to me. Something about the way it had turned its head by 300 degrees to look at me made me feel uncomfortable. Couldn't it have just turned the other way? 1010 is its name? Yes, her name is Ten. I was very young when we first and tried to say Tenebris. I stuttered, and what came out was Ten. The name just stuck. We got onto Ten and started flying south. At first, Ten's speed seemed somewhat slow, but as night fell, her speed increased explosively. I could feel the darkness around us respond and carry us like waves across the night sky. While we were flying in silence, I decided to review my gains. Chapter 90, Dark Elves and the Nox Aeterna. Of the 60 King Magi, I had been able to get the innate understanding of about 20 of them. The rest had unfortunately been destroyed by their owners. I wouldn't finish assimilating these understandings anytime soon, but at least I would passively grow stronger. While I had been immersed in my inner world, we had arrived above a clearing in the dark forest below. There were only a couple of wooden huts strewn all over the place. This couldn't be Svartalfheim, couldn't it? Before I could ask Night Owl what was going on, Ten swooped down into a rapid dive. With a snap, the ground in the middle of the clearing vanished and revealed a giant hole. Ten entered the hole and kept diving down into the darkness. We spent a few more seconds flying down the dark shaft before the walls opened up into a giant underground cavern. Ten spread her wings to catch our fall and began to glide through the cavern. The cavern was dimly lit by glowing crystals that gave off a soft purple glow. Since the lighting wasn't very good, I couldn't take in the full extent of the cavern. How do you guys see in this dimness? Night vision. Dark elf stuff, you know. Right, since they had dark in their name, it would make sense for them to be able to see in the dark. Then we suddenly entered a particular cave. The cave head was protected by a thin membrane made of magic that let no light pass. Despite that, there was no darkness in the cave. Just void and a single flower in the middle of the cave. What is this place? We call this place the Noctis Chamber. The flower there is Nox Aeterna, a flower that swallows darkness to grow. It has been here, collecting darkness for millennia. Studying the darkness within the Nox Aeterna yields much greater improvements in understanding, so we dark elves see it as a sacred and ancient flower. Don't listen to that old crook's lies. I'm not ancient. I am a delicate little flower, the embodiment of youthful cuteness. A young girl's angry voice rang out through the room. Based on the content of that sentence, the one talking was the Nox Aeterna. Was she perhaps like me? What? Who's talking? And who are you calling an old crook? I am talking, and you're the old crook. How dare you make me look old and undesirable before a fellow plant? So you too have attained consciousness. Yes, I am Nox. Welcome my new neighbor. Neighbor? I won't be staying here. What? No. You can't leave. She will come for you, she will enslave you, she will keep you as her guardian. Stay here. I've blocked her out, this place is safe. Once we grow strong enough, we can leave this place for good. I had only just escaped the divine snake with a killing addiction, and now I was told by a probably divine flower that going outside was dangerous. So, who is that she you keep talking about? Naturally, it's the Hararg. Never mind, she still has enough influence over me to stop me from telling you. But that just goes to show how dangerous the outside is. I had enough of the crazy flower and left, while carrying the still stunned Night Owl out with me. Upon leaving the cave, I was once again enveloped in darkness lit by dim crystals. The flower was just talking. You're friends with a talking tree. Why is a flower different? But you look human and you talk through the mind. I can talk like this too. I just don't like doing it. You can talk? Yes, now don't look so astonished. Assuming people can't do something because they aren't doing it will get you killed. But let's not dwell on what happened in there. You said you wanted to create an area of true darkness. Can I help? Your assistance would be most appreciated. Getting back onto 1010, we flew through more dimly lit caverns until we reached a giant underground tree. Halfway up the tree was a tree hole that we entered. So, is this tree going to start talking too? I should be asking you. I didn't even know about the Nox Aeterna. We waited for a whole minute but no voice came from the tree. Sufficient to say, it was just an ordinary tree.